Hello, how are you? I'm Dr. Marc Taub, and I am speaking to you from Memphis, Tennessee in the United States. I am the Chief of Vision Therapy and Rehabilitation at Southern College of Optometry. In this service, we see patients of all ages. We typically work with two populations. Number one being children and young adults with learning-related vision problems. That includes anything from a binocular vision issue like convergence insufficiency, accommodative insufficiency or accommodative issues, including strabismus, amblyopia, and vision information processing. These are typically kids that are struggling with headaches and eye strain, possibly not performing as expected in school, and they're looking for any answer that they can get, and we typically find a visual issue that relates to these issues. We work with other professions, including school officials, school teachers, as well as occupational therapists, neuropsychologists, physical therapists, to help remediate any of these issues. The other population we work with is patients who have had a brain injury. These are typically patients who were performing at a very high level, and then due to that brain injury, whether it be a car accident, we've had patients who have had drug overdoses. We've had patients who have been, most of our patients are with strokes. And typically they're going to have accommodative problems, vergence problems. They may have visual field cuts and suffer from double vision. So we're going to use all of our tools, including vision therapy, to help remediate those issues. So the title of my talk is The Impact of Vision Therapy on Life. And I'm going to start by talking about a patient who's near and dear to my heart, which is me. This story is one that I've told to patients, and I like to relay it because it lets them know that I've been in this position. So in the first grade, which is the age of 5 or I guess the age of 6 here, my teacher noticed that I was not doing very well. I would have trouble reading, sustained attention, and I would do better if information was, I was giving information verbally, but anytime I had to do written work or reading, I would struggle. And I was having headaches and just overall just poor performance. So luckily my teacher was wonderful and suggested to my mom that I go to an optometrist. And I don't remember that optometrist's name, but he recognized that there was a tracking issue and an accommodative issue, and he sent me to a practitioner that did vision therapy. With that practitioner's assistance, I did vision therapy. I diagnosed me with, the best I can remember, I never spoke to him about it, but an accommodative problem, a vergence problem, as well as an ocular motor issue. And I did vision therapy. And vision therapy consisted of a weekly visit, just like I do now. And we did 5 or 6 different activities, all aimed at retraining the brain to know where and when to look. If you use kind of a more of an eyeball model of VT, you've got the convergence plane and the accommodative plane. If one of those is off, then there's going to be blurry vision. There could be asthenopia. So working on getting the brain to realize where that it's supposed to be pointing so that there is clear single binocular vision. Working on hand-eye coordination so that both of those systems, the visual system and the motor system, are working together versus against each other. I also did some work with some visual processing, not past knowing once the information gets into the brain, hopefully single and clear, knowing what happens once it gets in there, working on things like visual motor coordination or visual memory, visual figure ground, a lot of the skills that we test with the TVPS test. Unfortunately, the doctor that I was working with didn't passed away while I was doing, at the time I was doing VT, and I transferred to another doctor who not only became my doctor, but became a lifelong friend and really a mentor in the field of optometry. And with his help and with my parents' assistance, driving me back and forth to VT, excuse me, I was able to overcome those issues. And I can without a doubt say that I would not be teaching vision therapy today without without that assistance, without that push from all of those people. So when I joined into the field of optometry, it was without a question I knew what I wanted to be doing and the impact that I could have on others. I'm happy to say that my experience with VT has been wonderful, and I can see the impact that VT, vision therapy, has on life, and not just physically, but mentally and socially, academically and emotionally. I can tell two stories, probably the two patients that have stood out to me the most in terms of academic success. I had one patient very early on in my career who was referred. This was a high school, a boy in high school. So he's about 15 or 16, and he was struggling. He was getting ready to take a standardized test, which can be very grueling. It could be 3 or 4 hours of testing. And his eyes would fatigue. He would get double vision. And overall, he was just struggling. A very smart boy, coming from a smart family, but he was struggling. And we diagnosed him. He was actually referred for a convergence issue, but he ended up having a divergence issue. And that divergence issue impacted his ability to look near and far. And he would have, because he was straining to do that, make those jumps, when he either looked either way, he was having blurry vision, eye strain, and double vision. With vision therapy, we were able to do, we treated him successfully over a matter of about 20 or 25 weeks. Typically, vision therapy is a weekly visit. Some do it every other week. It's usually about a 45-minute to an hour visit, and there is typically home support, 1 or 2 activities that the patient's expected to do 2 or 3, at least 2 or 3 days during the week, if not more. And they come back and we use activities like the Brock string, vectograms, plus and minus lenses in different scenarios to make an impact. Again, to retrain the brain to know where to look, how to look, and what it feels like to be looking, and feels like to be converging and accommodating. There's not that there's anything, in most cases, anything physically wrong, even with amblyopia and strabismus. It's just that they don't know how to turn their eye in the direction that we want them to, or converge their eyes when given that task. So we worked with, I keep trying not to say his name, we worked with him and successfully got him to be able to use his eyes both at distance and near. Accommodatively, he was functioning very well. Tracking, everything was really great. And with our assistance, he was able to finish up high school successfully, went on to college, and even went on to do a graduate degree. And actually, he went to London and did a graduate degree. So the impact that it had on his life, and he was a little bit of an older patient, was tremendous. Another patient that I had came in for more, he came in as a younger patient, as a 6 or 7-year-old, and he was having trouble with more on the processing things than anything. Instead of seeing the numbers in the word problem, all he saw was the bigger word problem. So his therapy looked very different than the first patient's. It was more aimed at, not necessarily remediating eye movements and convergence. It was more aimed at visual processing. So instead of the typical Brock string types activities, we worked with more things such as a parquetry block. For those who don't know, parquetry blocks are different shaped blocks, usually a square, a triangle, a diamond, and you build them in different patterns. And the patterns that you're using, you could either build them right on top, you can build them next to them, and some of the patterns have the lines that show you where the different shapes are supposed to go. Some of them don't. So you do that, and you can do that turning the different patterns so that there is a visual spatial component to it. So it's stuff like that. We use a lot of games. There are games that require visual manipulation. And we try to also do games that have visual as well as spatial manipulations, and as well as a motor component. Anytime you can bring another a sensory modality into the vision therapy program, it's going to be more successful. And we worked with this young man, and we worked with his school system to get them to understand how it was impacting him scholastically. I'm happy to say that this young man is now in college, and because of our work, he has been able to succeed. And he has some requirements in terms of extended test time and those kinds of skill accommodations, but they've allowed him to be successful in college. A third patient is a very different patient. This was a patient who had reduced vision because of nystagmus, congenital nystagmus. And for him, he was using glasses. Eventually we went to contact lenses, which helped him significantly. But because of the nystagmus, he had a little bit of a head turn. So we used our prism to alleviate that head turn so that his posture and his neck were improved. He was having neck issues. But then we also started using some low vision devices to increase contrast, to increase, we used an iPad to increase the text size, as well as started working with his school to get them to realize the accommodations that he needed to be successful. We worked on vision therapy, not to reduce the nystagmus, but to improve eye movements, convergence, as well as accommodation, which are still present. Just because you have a nystagmus or low vision doesn't mean that you don't require convergence and accommodation. That's one thing that I wish low vision practitioners did more of, was work more with the binocular system. So we worked with this young man, eventually getting him into glasses. Our goal wasn't to improve his visual acuity. Because of this nystagmus, his acuity was going to be, reduced. But our goal was to, improve his eye movements, improve his visual skills, but then also to improve his visual processing, because his visual acuity was reduced. Improving contrast, improving visual processing was key so that he can continue to function. For him, it was very important to use technology, using the iPad, so that his vision teacher didn't need to increase the font size of his work or scan stuff in and make it a larger size, making it harder to follow. So using the iPad, we scanned all of his work in, and he could manipulate it making it larger, smaller, changing the contrast was key for him. And I'm very happy to say that he's in high school and he's doing really well. So these are just 3 examples, kind of different age patients where vision therapy was able to make the impact on his life. And this is the same concept that happens with our patients who are suffering from a brain injury. They may come in with double vision, and we use prism or occlusion to reduce that double vision. We then work on some of the same visual skills. A convergence problem, in some cases, there is a muscle issue, but in many cases, or most cases, it's just the brain needs to be retrained in how to create single clear binocular vision. We'll work with patients who are having a field cut, and they can no longer drive, and we have to teach them and instruct them on skills on how to scan into certain areas. They may have what we call a visual neglect or visual inattention, and we have to use prism and vision therapy to teach them that part of their vision is not necessarily gone, but they just are just unaware of it. And vision therapy can be so helpful, not only with visual tasks, but can impact balance and can impact the ability to, can impact the vestibular system. So in those patients, we work a lot with other professions such as, as I said, neuropsychology, occupational therapy, physical therapy, even vestibular therapy to impact the patient globally. There is a lot of overlap in those areas, but we are all attacking the issue and all approaching the issue from different vantage points. So I'm very proud of the work that we do, and I'm very proud of our institution, Southern College of Optometry, because it does put an emphasis on these areas. As you saw with the 3 or 4 different cases, the impact that our profession can have through the use of vision therapy on the lives of our patients is tremendous. And I'm happy to say that all of our students are exposed to the impact that vision therapy can have. So I thank you for letting me speak with you, and please, if you don't have somebody who practices vision therapy near you, I always tell my students, I know you may not want to do vision therapy, but at least you can do is work with your patients and diagnose the issue, and then try to find somebody who does vision therapy. 3 different resources that I have, you can look, or actually 4, and there are many more depending on where you are in the world. There are practitioners that I know that do vision therapy in India, and you can find them by going to either the Optometric Extension Program Foundation, OEPF.org. You can go to the College of Optometrist and Vision Development, COVD.org. You can also go to the Optometric Rehabilitation Association, and I don't know that website offhand, but you can also go to the Australasian College of Behavioral Optometry. They are down in obviously Australia, but they do service the kind of that corridor, so China, Asia, those areas as well, in India. But find a doctor that does vision therapy. You will be doing your patients a huge service if you identify and can refer the patients over to them, to a practitioner that does vision therapy. And you really can have an impact on your patient's social, emotional, academic, and physical well-being. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I can be reached at mtaub@sco.edu.